In a previous video, coaches, I've talked about how 60 by 2 is a defensive philosophy which basically concentrates your defense on two players who are going to score pretty much 60% of the opponent's points. I now want to go a step further and share with you 8 ways that you can do that. First of all, for a perimeter player, if he's one of the 60 by 2 that you've identified, face guard. And that basically means there's no help anywhere around the floor, wherever that player goes. You deny, you keep focused on him, and you stay with him wherever he goes. And face guard is used a lot in 60 by 2. Perimeter double. Here's another option that you have. If a player is dribbling on the perimeter and begins to make a drive to the basket, take your closest perimeter player, have them totally leave their player, jump the dribbler, make him pick it up, either stay in that trap or rotate back out of it, so that every time he drives it, he knows he's got a double coming. All right, the third way is an on-ball double. Okay, if it's a perimeter player or a post player, and they come out and set an on-ball screen, immediately trap the on-ball screen. And what that should do is get the ball out of the perimeter player's hands, and then you can rotate back. Fourth way is double the post. If it's a good post player, figure out a system of doubling the post, whether it come from the other post or whether it come from the closest perimeter player when the ball does go to the post. So you have perimeter and post trapping. The idea there is to, number one, make them throw it back out, which is what you want in the first place. Number two, take a bad shot. Number three, turn it over. And if he throws it back out and he's a decent passer, we scramble back and we pick up 5 on 5. And we're in great shape. We accomplished what we intended to accomplish. 5 is be physical. And depending on how the game is officiated, your players in your rotation, your top 7 who you don't want to get in foul trouble, can still be physical on these two players. Some players just fold when the game gets physical. Okay. Others relish it, and they just kick up their game. It just depends. What you may do is use a seldom used player who's a good defender to come in and maybe sacrifice a couple fouls to be very physical on either, whether it's two perimeter players, perimeter and post, might be two post players. And be physical with them, maybe burn a couple fouls, sub out, and then sub back in. I've seen this work very effectively on players who do not like contact and do not like to play physical. Now, here's one we miss sometimes. Make them guard you. Put your team offensively in situations where you're going to put a premium on those two 60 by 2 players to guard your best players. Because a guy with 3 fouls in the first half cannot score 60% of that team's offensive output if he's sitting on the bench. So think about that. Focus in on how, through your offensive game plan, you can put pressure on those guys to guard. Get them in foul trouble. We said no help on penetration, and that's really part of face guarding, but I want to reiterate one fact. It is, because you play man-to-man, it is natural. If I'm guarding the player on the wing and the ball is driven to the paint, it is natural to step off and help for a second. You can't do that, okay? And it's called staying attached on ball side penetration. Okay? You cannot come off of your man on ball side penetration, and that's just something I think you really find is true once you put this into action. And the last thing is gadgets. Triangle and 2s, box and 1s, whether you want to do it the whole game or whether you want to just use it out of a timeout. So again, 60 by 2, here's 8 great ways, okay, to plug into 60 by 2, and I promise you will have great success with this defensive philosophy.